Hey everybody, it's Betsy back with another character design lesson. Last when we left off, we had these 4 different options for colors. Now looking at these, I'm not 100% satisfied with any of them, but so far I like the third one the most. So what I'm going to do is just tweak her colors a little bit more. Let's zoom in here. So what I don't like is the purple seems to be a little too dark. So I'm going to go ahead and get that same purple but just lighten it up and see how that affects the overall design. Let's do her shoes. Whoops. Let's go to layer and her hammer. And I think her eyes are a little bit too vivid. I'm going to take that a little bit more down. Maybe even just straight black so that they'll have the most contrast. There we go. And I'm liking that a whole lot better. Also don't really care for how gray her pocket is, so I'm going to go ahead and brighten that up. And that's looking pretty okay. I think I might want to actually make her shoes a darker blue so that they don't draw my attention down so much. The thing is with some of these colors, let me hit on this real fast. With your accent color, such as the turquoise, notice that if you kind of spread it around evenly, it kind of takes your eye all over the place. And with the purple too, it's kind of all over the place, so I think I want to tone it down so that the purple is closer to her face and nothing else. So when I get my darker blue here for her shoes and maybe this pocket, now with the purple all collected up near her face, it tends to bring our attention more up here rather than all over her design. I might even turn her hammer blue there so that we've got this purple and pink just kind of all clustered up by her face. So I like that a lot better. I think I'll change her hairband too, or maybe the dark purple. Yeah, I like the dark purple. Okay, so I've finalized my colors and I know this is the one I want. So how do I proceed from here? Well, we're going to need our original lines, and I'm also going to clean up my layers a little bit. You can see that I've got a lot of folders, a lot of layers, and for the other color options that I'm not going to choose, I don't have to keep the layers separate. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my colors layer, come up to layer, and there's merge folder. So I just merge the folder and you can see it turns into its own layer. And I'm going to do that with the second one also, merge folder. And the third one I might want to keep separate in case I want to tweak the colors a little bit more, but the fourth one I don't need. So I'll go layer, merge folder. And then I'll go ahead and take these colors and I'll merge them down again so that I can take down this number of folders and number of layers. So now that I have the colors 4 in there, I'm just going to slip that into the colors folder. If you want to rename it back to just colors, you can do that. And then I'm going to make a new folder, drag it to the bottom here, and name this one Final Design. Whoa, we finally made it. So in my final design, I'm going to need the original lines layer. So I'm going to go back to my poses folder. I'm going to take the lines layer and duplicate it. That's the double pages button down here. So I get 2. If you can't figure out which button it is, you can always go up to layer and then hit the duplicate here or Control J. All of those ways will do the same thing of duplicating your layer. And I'm going to bring that lines layer into my final design folder. I'm going to unclick that little bullet point here so to get rid of the colors, just to show you that there's my lines at full size. I could try to take my colored one and enlarge it again, but it's going to get pixelated and blurry, so we can't do that. So we're just going to have her there, and then I'm going to go ahead and save this image as its own separate file. I'm going to go save as, and this will be a JPEG, and this will be the color options. I'm just going to save that there real quick. Say OK, OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to change your file to the color options even though I have all of my folders here. So then you just go ahead and say save as again, and you can click on your original file so that you'll be there. It says it already exists and we want to overwrite it. So do you want to replace it? Yes, we do. So by doing that, by making it its own file, we can go over here to the reference window, and if you don't have your reference window open, you just go to Window and click on the reference, and then click the little piece of paper up here, and I'm going to go to my folder and find my color options. So now I can zoom in on the color options that I want, and I'll be able to color pick from here while I'm coloring my large ones. I'll take care of that, bring this one back. We'll go through the same steps that we did before. I need a new layer. I'm going to call this the base color. And the base color goes below the line, so I move the lines up. And then I'm going to grab my magic wand. We want it set to canvas. I'm going to click on there, and our character is blue. Then we'll go to select, expand by 2. Say OK, and then we'll flip it around so that our character is white, and we're going to insert with whatever color you want. Sometimes I'll just go ahead and pick the skin color, and I'll do that so that one of my colors is already there. And we've got that, but remember there's that little spot to clean up, so I'm going to switch back to my navigator so that I can zoom in on that section, get my eraser, make sure it's small enough, and then go ahead and clean that out. There we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer because we don't want to mess with that layer anymore. I'll get another one, call this one colors. And then we'll go ahead and switch back to our reference, and now I can just select whatever color I've already chosen in my thumbnail. And I can come back and color the real thing. Whoops, switch to navigator, zoom in. See, in the future I think I might even save the first one we did with the wild colors as a large one, because here I am doing the exact same thing again. When I've already done this, I could have just saved my previous work and saved myself some time. So there's a little note for future character coloring. Remember how the paint goes all outside the lines, but if we click on the clipping, then all of a sudden it'll snap back to whatever we did for the base color, so we don't have to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and color that all in, but I am going to be careful around her ear here and her skin. Close that shape, G, fill it in. So since we already covered this in one of the earlier videos, I'm not going to narrate this part. I'm just going to speed it up so you can see what comes next. So these are the finished flat colors, but we're not done yet. We're going to add a little bit of shading to our drawing, and instead of going in and having to pick individually dark colors for each shadow, we're going to use a multiply layer. So I'm going to get a new layer, click on the little gear and call it shadows. And then we're going to change the blending mode up here where it says normal, and we're going to change that to multiply. Multiply as you know with math, numbers get bigger when you multiply, so you can think of it as colors getting darker. We want these shadows to stay on just the colored areas. We don't want it to go on to the white, so we'll click on the clipping, and then we'll pick kind of a just medium gray, and we'll go ahead and get a larger brush, and I'm just going to do a rough pass first, meaning that I just want to kind of get a feel of where the light is coming from. In fact, we can go and unclick clipping so we can give ourselves a little arrow to say, let's say the light is coming from this side. So everything that is near this arrow is going to be in light, and anything away from it is going to be dark. You can kind of think of this like rain. If rain was coming down and hitting onto her face, where are the areas that it couldn't reach? Well, it probably couldn't reach the back of her head because rain can't magically go woo and then hit the back of her head. So if you kind of think of light beams being like rain and just think about where that rain can hit and where it can't hit, that will show you where to put your shadows. So I'm going to get rid of all that and start my shadows on the left side opposite to where my rain is coming from. And I'm also going to shade in pretty much the bottom of things. Well, maybe not that part of the pencil. Could the rain hit? I feel like the rain could hit there a little bit. Might even switch it over to this side actually. So I'm just going to get a really big brush and start with some really broad strokes. Just coloring in pretty much the left side of everything, and then we'll come back and we'll clean it up a little bit. So there's the left side of that, underneath things, so underneath these cuffs, left side of that pant leg, left side of that cuff, underneath her sleeve and her hand, bottom of the hammer, underneath the hammer here. Maybe a little bit on her pocket, maybe a little bit on her nose, left side of all of her chunks of hair. Maybe something like this. And once I've got these big gloopy shadows kind of all over the place to help me get the sense of lighting, then I'll go ahead and click on that clipping. And you can see that it makes all of our shadows just come right into the colored sections. And now I can come back and erase out these shadows into better shapes. So I'm going to click on this little grid box over here. You've got your color on top, your color on the bottom that you can switch back and forth. But I'm going to click on this little checkerboard, which is for the eraser, and take my brush size down a bit. And now I can come in here and I can adjust any shadows that I think are too big, or I can adjust the shape to her nose here. I can get rid of any shadows creeping up where I don't want them. And if you need to add more shadow, you just click on that gray again and you can color in with that gray and then switch back to eraser when you want to get rid of it. I don't want too much shadow on this pencil, so I'm going to take that back a little bit. Maybe a little bit on the bottom of her eyebrows here. Maybe even inside her mouth. Just remember you have to use the eraser when you're getting rid of the shadows. We can't just pick over here in this color and start using that color because it'll be a different shade of, or different shadow color than our gray. So I can't do that. I have to keep keep on the gray. And let's say you accidentally changed your color and you were coloring, you go, whoops, how do I get my gray back? Well, you can't just select here because it'll turn into a different color. You have to go back to your shadows layer and just change multiply back to normal. Some people will just leave it normal so that it's easier to adjust the shadows without having to switch the layer back and forth, but I kind of like to see how it's going, so I like to keep the multiply layer on. But just in case you accidentally changed your color, you can just come back here, click on the gray, it has to be on normal, and then you can just change it back to multiply. And now I've got my gray back. Put that all the way under her chin, maybe bring this one a little bit up. So here's the first pass of the shadows, and it's a little too dark. It's a little too just dull for the bright and happy character that she's supposed to be. So your shadows that are that gray color, remember I'll turn it back to normal so you can see the regular gray color, we can change that into some brighter colors. I'm going to choose something in the blue area because most shadows are blue, but then I'm going to click on the square behind it and they'll flip places so that I can choose another color, maybe something more like a warm kind of a purple. Then I'm going to grab my little gradient tool here, my fading one right under the paint bucket, and I have to make sure to protect alpha. Remember, protect alpha is the one that stops it from creating any new pixels. So I'm going to do that, and then when I draw a line from her head to her toe, you can see that the shadows are going to change from this lighter purple on top to the darker purple down there. Then I just change it back to multiply to see how these shadows are a little bit brighter than that gray one, but they're still too dark. So it's easy to fix. You just take your opacity slider here, it's at 100%, and you can click, 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 down, down, down until the shadows are less harsh and less dark. So around 20%, anywhere from 20 to 43, depending on where she is, what time of day it is, all that kind of stuff. But just for a regular standing shot like this for character design, it's usually around 25%.